How does your own definition of beauty affect your life? One day while scrolling on Instagram, I came across a post that stood out to me. It made me want to look at it more, so I tapped on it, and like this, it got my attention. What was behind this? Beauty. Often our eyes are drawn to it. We can find it in art, people, landscapes, animals, music, and many other things. While beauty may be partly subjective, we all like to spend time looking at or experiencing beautiful things. Where does that come from? Where does beauty come from? Where does our need or desire for beauty come from? On one hand, beauty can make things more meaningful, leading to happiness and joy. On the other hand, it can make us envious, insecure, or sad. So how can you use beauty to your advantage in art and in life? Hi, I'm May, and today I'd like to look at the topic of exquisite beauty by analyzing Yuelight's art, an artist who draws a lot of Genshin Impact fan arts. You may be wondering, what do I mean by exquisite beauty? Exquisite is a good word to talk about the topic of beauty to me because it can be defined by the following things: being extremely beautiful and delicate, being intensely felt, and being highly sensitive or discriminating. As a noun, an exquisite can even refer to a man who is affectedly concerned with his clothes and appearance. Often when we think about beauty, it has to do with our own appearance or how something looks, and that can be a sensitive topic, but it's worth exploring it in detail because when we understand beauty, we understand one of the basic human characteristics. Unlike animals, for example, we're able to appreciate beauty, and there's a reason behind it. By knowing that reason, you can use beauty to your advantage without being trapped by it. We'll explore that in this video. First, let's go through different elements of Yuelight's art in the analysis part. For this, I'll add an aspect, kind of like a tip about beauty for each element. Then we'll apply all these elements in an illustration while reflecting on the topic to see what we can take away for our own lives. Let's start with the first element, the lines. The lines are very thin, some can be fully painted over. The lines also tend to look dynamic and free, they have a light feel. There can be gaps in the line art, they can also have a more sketchy look at times. Sometimes no outlines can also be used to portray clothes and elements such as accessories and flowers. The face and head tend to have the most clear outlines, adding focus to them. When lines are used, there can be some varying line thickness, but due to the thin lines, it's not very heavy usually. What stands out to me here is how the lines will sometimes have a shadow added along them as well, especially for skin areas. Now for a tip on beauty. How often do you try to do something to make others happy? Or do you ever try to look a specific way to appear more attractive? Oftentimes a person becomes more attractive when they stop constantly seeking validation. Instead of chasing approval, living consistently in alignment with your own values is very powerful. It can make your inner beauty shine through. It is also similar with art. If you're creating something for productivity or external praise, only trying to impress others, the work tends to be shallow or empty. Art becomes more meaningful or beautiful when it communicates something honest. Lines tend to define an artwork. Even in lineless works, edges imply shapes. Oftentimes I discover that when I simply use the lines to mark boundaries, they can turn out a bit stiff or lifeless. It can be similar in life. Trying to look or act only to fit expectations or standards can be seen as letting the people around you define your boundaries, define your lines. The result is a feeling of emptiness and lifelessness. However, you also have the power to define the lines yourself, to place them with purpose. When I am more mindful and use aspects like line weight intentionally, it makes the artwork better. What are the lines that define you? What are your values? And how can you communicate these lines in an elegant way so the artwork of your own life appears more beautiful? Let's go back to analyzing the lines. They will usually have a dark brown color. They're not colored except for a few cases where the lines take on a more similar color to the colors around them. Sometimes lines can transition into shadows. In some cases, only shading is used to portray different elements without outlines, especially for inner parts and anatomy. Speaking of which, let's move on to the bodies and anatomy next. Bodies are around 7 heads tall with semi-realistic muscular proportions. The use of proportions will also depend on the character. Someone like Alhaitham from Genshin Impact or Dr. Ratio from Honkai Star Rail will have wider, more adult bodies than Mika from Ensemble Stars, for example. The portrayal of muscles can be very detailed here. Hands tend to be elegant. When it comes to beauty, especially for bodies, there can be a lot of different views on what body types people find attractive, on what is healthy, and so on. One thing that stands out to me is the relevance of social media or media in general. There, idealized human or character body types can be seen, and comparison can often occur. Here the value of authenticity is especially helpful to me because often the images we see are performative, they were created to look good, to reach many people, to be liked, but in our day-to-day lives authenticity is more sustainable than trying to fit every trend. Beauty becomes healthier when it is connected to truth instead of performance. Eating healthier or working out to take care of one's own body, that's a good thing when done with a reasonable mindset, avoiding laziness or overindulgence in food. But when you do things to your body solely to perform, to appear a specific way to others, without considering your own health, it can be dangerous. When it comes to authenticity, we often see that honesty is more beautiful than pretending to always have it together. It can even be seen in art, where vulnerability can be stronger, leaving a lasting impression, as opposed to just technical perfection. That already leads me to the next tip, so for the next aspect, the faces, let's start with the tip on beauty. I talked about technical perfection, and here I'd like to point out the beauty in imperfection. Have you ever tried mirroring your own face? It looks a bit weird and uncanny, but as artist I often try to make a face look more symmetrical. Still, it never turns out completely symmetrical, and this slight asymmetry, whether it's for our real faces or artworks, it adds natural beauty. We all have flaws and imperfections, but still we can find each other beautiful. When it comes to stories or characters, flaws can be what draws us to them as well. Flaws can often lead to growth. Imperfection can add emotional depth and authenticity. So the next time you notice a flaw, instead of letting it drag you down, try to see what you can learn from it. Try to see the beauty in that imperfection. Let's move on to the faces. The face shape and chin tend to be rounded here. For more side-facing faces, the face shape can also be more sharp, edgy or square as well, with a sharper change of direction. The change of direction appears between the eyes and ears, vertically on the face for side-facing head angles. For more front-facing ones, it's at the outer eye. Horizontally, the change of direction appears below the mouth for a head angle from below and higher up on the face, around the nose level for head angles from above. Often the face outline even fades at the change of direction. Distance-wise, the forehead can be rather small, while the chin to lower nose distance can be a bit bigger for the face. This leads to more adult-looking characters. In the side view, the chin often protrudes a bit, also having a rounded shape here. Next, let's talk about the facial features. One longer line tends to be used to portray the nose bridge. Another line, which sometimes would be connected to the nose bridge line, is used to portray the lower part of the nose. The nose bridge line can be more or less pronounced here depending on the illustration. Often a second line or shadow is added on the nose line as well. In the front view, the nose can also be portrayed with just some hatching lines and a shadow. You can see the nose shape especially in the side view, which shows it as rectangular with a rounded nose tip turning upwards. Next, for the mouths, they are portrayed through a thin line with a bit of varying thickness. The mouth corners usually have the thickest lines, while the mouth generally tends to be rather small here. A slight shadow along the mouth line is often added, similarly to the slight shadow at the nose bridge line. For open mouths, just a wide shape can be used, or outlined teeth and the tongue can be visible depending on the expression. In the side view, the upper lip is more protruding than the lower lip. Now let's move on to the eyebrows. They usually have a rather straight, slightly rounded shape, getting thinner from the inside of the face toward the outside. The inner part will often feature a sharp lower triangular shape, adding a dynamic, sharp look. The rather straight overall shape adds some seriousness or also a casual look as well. What can also be affected by the expression would be the eyes, which I'll talk about next. First, I'm focusing on the outlines and shapes of the eye. For the side view, the shape would be triangular. In other cases, the shape tends to be slightly square or almond-like here, with the upper and lower shape often including a slight curve. This slight curve is at the inner part for the upper lash and at the lower part for the lower lash. Speaking of lashes, let's talk about these next. The upper eyelash tends to be bold and rather thick with a dark brown or black color, while the lower eyeline is thin. It can also be lighter. Similarly to the facial features and overall face outline, a slight shadow can also be added to the eye outline. Small lashes can sometimes be added at the inner corner of the upper eyelash or at the outer corner of the lower eyelash, for example. For lines around the eye, there would be one line above the eye. It tends to follow the eye shape. In a few cases, a line below the lower eye shape can also be added to further emphasize the shadow beneath the eyes. Now we're moving on to what's inside the eye shape, the iris. Shape-wise, this would be round and rather small. It's also affected by the head angle and perspective, which you tend to see especially with the pupil placement. Here are layers I would use for a similar eye shading result to Yuelight's art. First would be a base layer, next a shadow layer, which would often include a shadow for the upper part of the iris. One of the eyes here also features a more detailed shadow shape. Finally, an optional light layer, which can feature light at the bottom of the iris. The pupil tends to be portrayed as a round outlined shape, the inner part sometimes having a different color or the same color as the base color of the eye. In some cases, the pupil is also just one colored shape. Now for all the other shading on the face I haven't mentioned yet. First would be shading around the eyes. Often a slight red outline shadow can be added along the lower eyeline here. Other than this, slight shadows above the eye can be added in a few cases. Usually the shading here will also be affected by the shadows that are cast from the hair onto the face. This leads me to other shading on the face. Other than the shading along the outlines, which I previously mentioned, light or shadows can be added depending on the lighting, as well as a slight blush underneath the eyes in a few cases. The iris shading is rather minimalistic, especially for some of the illustrations with red eyes. No shading can also be added, making the red colors of the eyes more intense in a way. The eyes here can feature no highlights as well, adding a darker effect. Speaking of the highlights, when they are added, they tend to be placed at the upper part of the pupil, slightly overlapping into the iris shape as well. Finally, for the white of the eye, a shadow that's cast from the eyelash can sometimes be added. Through the eyes, we're able to see the world around us. We often find visual beauty in nature. It can create a sense of wonder while giving us perspective, reminding us that there are so many things out there to be seen and experienced, that we're just one out of many living beings on this planet right now. Does being in or looking at nature also affect you in such a way, making you slow down and notice beauty you may normally ignore? When we become more present, we can find beauty in ordinary daily experiences. There's also beauty in rare or temporary moments. They remind us that life is fleeting. That leads me to the next tip about beauty. For this, we're moving on to an aspect that, similarly to the eyes, can be very unique to each artist, the hair. Experiences and gratitude can help us to find beauty in everyday life. I mentioned that life is fleeting and life is complex. It comes with sadness or uncertainty as well. But just like with imperfections, there is a beauty to it. Have you ever listened to a sad song or watched a sad movie but still liked it? Did you still see beauty in it? Often, without any tension or negative emotions, a story becomes unrealistic or boring to us. Even movies or songs with happy endings feature some negative emotions or experiences as well, and usually these negative aspects make the positive ones shine more. Just like with imperfections, we can often learn a lot and grow through negative experiences or emotions. One thing that also stands out to me about experiences is how different people interpret them. We all see things through our own perception, based on our own unique experiences. Often reflection can help us to understand experiences more deeply, but at the same time, overanalyzing can also remove emotional depth. This shows that presence matters. Constantly living in the past or future can be dangerous. But still, gratitude for what has happened and hope for the future can be a good thing. It can give you a more beautiful perception of life. All in all, happiness is often connected to appreciating what already exists instead of endlessly chasing more. There's beauty in gratitude and hope. Let's talk about the hair now. The hairlines have rounded zigzaggy shapes. The small upwards curves at the ends of the strands are characteristic here, making the hair appear a bit more messy, lively and dynamic in a way. They also add some sharpness to the sometimes more and sometimes less rounded hair strand shapes, which are affected by the character's individual hairstyle. Line thickness wise, one thing to note is that the clearest and thickest line art will be used to portray the silhouette of the hair. Especially the hair ends are thicker with the lines intersecting. The line thickness generally is rather thin and few lines are used, especially for inner parts no line art is commonly used. Here the strands tend to be defined through shading. Let's talk about this next. The hair shading has a grainy texture in many cases. It looks like a brush with such a texture is used. A lot of rough shapes that blend a bit into one another are used, with some more defined sharp zigzaggy shapes that clearly separate a few parts. The rough shapes tend to add volume. Often the darker parts are around the hair part, while the rough shading gets brighter around the face. It can also be influenced and affected by the general lighting setup used in the illustration. The mix of more rough general shading with bigger shapes and the defined more specific and sharper shadow shapes add a nice contrast, making the hair look more lively in a way. Now I'll go over the shading layers I would use to create a hair shading result similar to yuelight's art. First a base layer, next I would add a first shadow layer, then a second shadow layer with a darker shadow color. Both these shadow layers feature more sharp shapes in the case of this illustration. The next layer focuses more on conveying the head's volume. It would be a warm hue variation layer. After this, as kind of a nice contrast to the previous layer, I'd add a cool reflected light layer which features parts at the right outer edge and the inner part at the left on this hairstyle, adding some depth. Finally, there's a highlight layer which not only includes a few highlight shapes but also a few light hair strands, giving the hair a bit of a shiny look and adding detail. And the last aspect for the hair I'll mention is how the facial features such as eyebrows and eyes appear when they are covered by hair. Most of the time they are not visible. In a few cases especially, the eyebrows can be slightly visible with lower opacity. From the hair that covers the head, we move on to the clothes that cover the body. Formal wear is often depicted. This would include clothing items like suits or ties with some jewelry. In other cases, the characters can be drawn with their original outfit or in AU, meaning alternate universe outfits, a Spider-Verse AU, a Sports AU, or a modern biker AU, for example. Outfits have a minimalistic aesthetic with detail added through accessoires, layers and patterns at times. Depiction-wise, the clothes rendering tends to have a textured and rough but defined and slightly painterly look. The mix of more sharp and soft shadows makes the clothes look kind of crisp in a way to me. That's a word I would use to describe how the rendering feels to me. There's a shapy look that makes the clothes feel kind of dynamic to me as well. In some illustrations, small white highlights lines, similarly to what I mentioned for the hair in the shading example, can be added. When it comes to drawing different outfit pieces like jewelry or fabric, being aware of the material and how light interacts with it can help a lot. Understanding that there's a science behind it, that leads me to the next aspect about beauty. Finding beauty in our interests. When we find something beautiful, we often become interested in it, leading us to explore that interest in more depth. Beauty can be very useful in this way, giving us reasons to learn something. An artist may see beauty in a specific painting style and try to learn more about it because of this. Similarly, a scientist may see beauty in an aspect of life or nature and learn more about it due to this. You can apply this usage of beauty to many interests. For example, many scientific discoveries are driven by curiosity, wonder, and a search for harmony. Beauty can motivate learning just as strongly as usefulness can. Now for the next aspect about beauty, for which we'll move on to the next element of analysis, the colors and palettes. I mentioned that beauty can motivate us to learn something, to take action. There can also be beauty in our actions and behavior, not just physical appearance. When it comes to living a beautiful life, how we treat others plays a big role. Every person has an inner world that others cannot fully see. At the same time, people are moved when they feel understood and seen, when we start going toward that internal layer and not just the external one. Due to this, genuine connection requires empathy, patience, and listening. Like this, we may be able to shape others' lives in powerful and beautiful ways. Community becomes stronger when we build it with encouragement and kindness, when we allow different strengths to work together instead of competing with each other. I mentioned external and internal layers and how you can find beauty in both of them. These layers may also influence each other. External beauty alone doesn't guarantee fulfillment, goodness, or wisdom. There's an internal layer, beauty in thoughts, personality, and character, for example, as well. Often the beauty in that internal layer has the power to shine through the external layer too. With drawing, when you take the time to take some inner thoughts or concepts and translate them into an external layer, rather than just drawing whatever appears nice on the external layer, it can lead to a more mesmerizing result. With colors, for example, you could first determine a color palette or color contrast to use based on the atmosphere you would like to achieve with the artwork. Then, when drawing on the external layer, you can keep this in mind. With that said, colors in yuelight's art are often warm and dark. They're also rather saturated, and a lot of black and white tones are combined with one or two main colors for most illustrations: gold, blue, purple, red or turquoise. The main color tends to be defined by the character's original outfit, often here. Golden accessories add some warmth as well. The palettes aren't overwhelming, and the inclusion of black and sometimes white clothing parts adds a lot of contrast, which can be further emphasized by the aspect I'll move on to next: the shading. For artworks where you can see the faces of characters, either front light with the face in light and a few cast shadows from, for example, the hair is used, or the face is in shadow with some light on it that draws attention to the face. For this, light at the jaw or at the nose tends to be added. No light on the face can also be used, adding an intimidating look. Yuelight has also shared artworks that feature just bodies, and for these the shading or lighting can add a lot of interest. The shadows have a textured look, a lot of sharp shapes tend to be used through the texture, especially these can look more rough as well. Instead of smooth, clear or blurred edges, the texture gives the shadow shapes a distinct and unique look. The shading itself will often also be influenced by the material. Metal parts have smaller, more defined and clear shadows and lights, while fabric will often have bigger, more rough shapes. For skin, a bit of hue variation and saturated shadow borders can be added for a more lively look. Next, let's go over some shading layers. First is a base layer, next a first shadow layer, which transitions into the darker shadows. I would add on the second shadow layer. The darkest parts here are at the upper left corner and on the opposite side. Along the right outer edge I would add a warm tone on a light layer. Finally, there would be a hue variation layer on which neon turquoise colors are included. These are placed along the shadow edges for the darker shadow color. One thing that stands out to me about shading as a concept is how unique it can be for each artist. Some like to use layer modes, some add shadows mostly, some add lights mostly, and others don't use shading at all. There are so many different ways to apply shading, and they all can look nice in their own way. That leads me to the beauty in subjectivity and uniqueness. Why are there so many art styles? Part of it is that each one of us finds different things in art beautiful. The same applies to other concepts we can see as beautiful, such as clothes, houses, nature, music, or interests. In a way, we all have our own clothing, furniture, or music style. What people generally consider beautiful changes across generations, cultures, and individual people. Social standards of beauty constantly change and can be heavily shaped by culture. Something to look out for here is that human-made hierarchies often create unnecessary pressure and insecurity. You can experience more freedom when you stop letting society define your value, when you're not afraid to be unique. Often what's unique even stays in your mind for a longer time. It can make your mind open up to new possibilities. In a similar way, meaningful art often challenges people to think differently. Intriguing what-if scenarios, unusual compositions or colors, these aspects can carry their own unique charm and beauty. Often, artists may also add unique elements to their artworks, props, backgrounds, texts, and so on, for example. That also leads me to the last aspect for the analysis part, which would be the extra effects and backgrounds. Usually there's no background, it's just a gray tone, adding focus to the character. In a few cases, atmospheric elements like clouds can be added. For this outfit, design artwork of Zhongli, a pattern inspired by Zhongli's outfit designing game, would be added in the background. In another artwork that features him in this outfit as well, a shadow is added behind his legs, and a shadow like this is also added behind Brent in another artwork, giving it a bit of a spotlight look fitting to his character. Effects are kept minimal and only featured in some cases. These can include a halftone or dot texture at edges of the illustration, kind of framing Mika here along with the flowers that are added. In other cases, small sparkles or particles can be included. To separate elements from each other, depth-wise a white outline, for example around the torso or an arm of a character, can also be added. The texture that is used for these and for the line art, the colors and the shading in Yuelight's illustrations in general can also be seen as an extra effect here, giving the artworks a unique look. As a final aspect about beauty, let's talk about the beauty of art. Creativity can reveal emotions and thoughts that are difficult to express directly. An image, a movie, a song, a story, they are more than just the words, the colors, the instruments, and so on. These creative works convey a person's unique combination of own thoughts and ideas. They are shaped by the artist's personality and experiences. Each artist's style, each person's art preferences, each person's interests, there's a beauty in how it's different for each individual person. Reflecting on one's own interests to see where you find beauty in life can make you more self-aware. It can help with making choices for the future while also appreciating the life you have been given more. With that, we're finished with the analysis portion of this video. Next, let's apply all the elements in an illustration. As with my other art style analysis videos, for this I'll draw my original character Humari. Alongside this, let's talk more about the topic of beauty. To begin with, I mostly mentioned some positive sides of beauty during the analysis part. Let's also reflect on the dangers of beauty, and after identifying the dangers, we'll look at how we can avoid and overcome them. For one, there would be physical beauty. It can be misleading. Beautiful things can be dangerous or not good for us. For example, I see this in relationships based on appearances only. Maybe you've also seen this in some movie where the main character falls for the good-looking person, only to find out that personality-wise that person is not nice, egoistic or possessive, for example. Beauty can also give us a kind of fear or insecurities, which may be used in advertisements for beauty-related products. Most of the advertisements I see have more of an empowering feeling, so this may not be that clear, but overall the message is if you have this product, you'll look and feel better about yourself, which can lead to thoughts like, if I don't have this product, I'm not pretty enough, good enough, and so on. There's a slight pressure to buy something to look more beautiful. I don't know how seeing advertisements like these affects you. I personally have never been convinced by them, except for early teenage years maybe. I've learned to not let them influence me, but I find it interesting how much we get bombarded with these fashion or beauty product advertisements in our day-to-day lives. Or is it just me? When I watch YouTube, around half the advertisements I see are for fashion or beauty-related products. If you'd like, let me know what kind of advertisements you tend to see in the comments. Even when browsing on websites, the ads often depict some beauty-related products or other objects, which sometimes also could add to the beauty of our rooms, for example. There are many advertisements for beauty products, skincare, sunscreen, makeup. Here beauty is used as the desired object, and the product promises giving you more beauty. However, it really is in the eye of the beholder. I don't use anything other than deodorant and some sunscreen when I'm in the sun for a long time, and I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. Rather, I'm glad to not have to spend time worrying about buying or applying such products. Something I find a bit funny with some of these products is how they advertise for enhancing natural beauty. Well, in essence, the natural beauty is already there without that product, so it is a bit contradictory that you would need a product to achieve this natural beauty, which should already be there naturally. What are your thoughts on this? If you buy beauty-related products, are you doing it because you enjoy taking care of yourself in this way, or is it to fit societal expectations that you feel like are set upon you? Then there's fashion. Part of the fashion industry is built on the concept of beauty. Yes, it is also functional, as we need clothes to cover our bodies and to stay warm. But many people nowadays use it as a form of self-expression as well, and I understand that this can be fun. I like to design characters and explore fashion that way as well. After all, I see beauty in it. But again, I would not say that you can only be beautiful if you have some specific fashion items or outfits, that you need to fit my or any specific beauty preferences to be beautiful or loved. Each human being is beautiful, valuable, and loved. So if you enjoy dressing up or shopping as an interest, that's okay. Just keep in mind that you don't want beauty to rule over you, giving you FOMO, which would be a fear of missing out, making you buy things to achieve a trend or something, making you feel insecure. It's important to be aware of the environmental and emotional impact your shopping and clothing choices have on you and the world. When it comes to beauty, I see transformation connected to it as well, because often we compare things, evaluating what is more beautiful between different options or times, from average or ugly to beautiful. That's the kind of transformation I've often seen in shows and movies or even games like episode Choose Your Story. There can be this beauty transformation that the main character goes through, after which the main character finally seems to be popular and gets what they want. It even appears in the music video for You Belong With Me by Taylor Swift, for example. Well, I think we can take some things from that. Not that you need to visually fit some sort of beauty standard to be beautiful, but I think there is some value in taking care of one's appearance. As kind of an appreciation for one's own body and self, getting to express your visual likes through clothing choices or just a genuinely confident, peaceful facial expression and body language, that in itself can be very beautiful. To me, the transformation should really be about the inner self, which may lead to some outer changes as well. Inner beauty lasts longer than an outer beautiful mask. Speaking of masks, these objects remind me of fictional stories and worlds, because when we immerse ourselves in them, it's a bit like putting on a mask. Through the mask, we may act like, or at least empathize with, characters in that world. For example, for Genshin Impact, you can walk around and interact with characters, making choices in this simulated world. For other games, movies or books and so on, it is similar. You may not always have a choice, but you immerse yourself in the story. Through the lens of one or multiple characters, you see and experience different scenarios, using your mind and imagination. That's a beautiful ability that humans have, being able to imagine and emphasize. We live in a time where we have access to something amazing, fictional worlds, portrayed in visual forms. Video games, movies, shows, those are things that only got developed over the last 100 years. Even photographs, as a form to capture memories or experiences, can hold their own beauty. And the internet allows us access to all kinds of photos and videos from people around the world. The games we choose to play, the photos we choose to take, or the movies we choose to watch, that alone can be a bit of a mirror for us, for what we desire, where we find beauty. The profiles we follow on social media, the videos we watch on YouTube, it all gives us clues to what we find beautiful. With fictional worlds, there can be the following danger when it comes to beauty. Because often these worlds are designed to be beautiful, it can make these worlds more desirable than the real world, which can lead to escapism, when you start living more in that fictional world rather than in the real world. With beauty in photography, there is a bit of a danger of nostalgia, not living in the moment, wanting to desperately hold on to everything and only experiencing things through or with a capturing device. It can even lead to spending a lot of time looking back at photographs instead of making new memories, and then feeling like life in the past was much better. When it comes to beauty and the internet, there's the danger of envy or comparison. You can see what the richest people, very lucky people, and generally people all around the world experience, which can make you want the same things. Often exceptional things get popular, and the most popular things are shown to you. This can give you a distorted view of reality, where what's normal seems unimpressive and lacking, and the exceptional things you see online become the norm that seems like it's impossible to reach. And as mentioned before, there's this aspect of natural beauty. Here I'd like to connect this to something else with health. What's healthy tends to be more beautiful. Now I get that trying to tell a child that the vegetables are more beautiful than candy won't be very effective. The candy was probably designed to look more desirable, while vegetables are often just in their natural shape after all. And in our society it seems to be normal to reward someone with chocolate rather than with nuts or a carrot, for example, most of the time. However, as you grow up, you tend to find beauty in things that are actually good for you. There is more of a long-term beauty in a healthy lifestyle, outweighing the short-term beauty of a binge, a lazy TV session or something like this. A workout session, a healthy meal, there is a beauty to it that seems to come from the long-term happiness, outweighing the short-term satisfactions you constantly have to aim for with the unhealthier options. That's it for some dangers of beauty that we may encounter in our day-to-day lives. Finally, let's look at how we can overcome each one of these. First, I mentioned that physical beauty can sometimes be misleading or dangerous. For example, when establishing a relationship based on appearances only. The solution here is to also pay attention to the personality, using both the mind and heart to evaluate whether a person or anything else that looks beautiful is trustworthy and good for you. Next would be the aspect about beauty and advertisements. Advertisements may use beauty to put pressure on you to buy something to get fulfillment. Here the solution is to not let these advertisements cloud your judgment. Truly reflect on how you perceive the advertisements, whether you believe what is said in them. This also leads me to the next aspect, beauty products or fashion items. The danger is needing to buy something specific to be beautiful or to feel worthy of love. Realizing one's own beauty and value, independent of what products you buy or use, is the first step to overcoming this. Then it is also good to check whether you buy the beauty-related products for yourself or mostly for other people. Do you do it because you yourself enjoy taking care of yourself in such a way? Or is it to meet societal expectations, to impress others? What's connected to both the topic of advertisements and the beauty or fashion products would be our buying habits. Beauty can tempt us to buy unnecessary things due to insecurities, trends and FOMO, but those insecurities or a pressure to follow a trend doesn't need to exist in the first place. To avoid this danger, make sure that beauty does not rule over you. Reflect on your shopping habits and how they affect the environment, the people around you, society, your budget, and most importantly, yourself. Why do you buy things? What do you buy? Are any of these things unnecessary and only bought due to trends or insecurities that you have because of beauty? If you'd like, share some of your thoughts on this in the comments, because hearing others' experiences can help each one of us to be more mindful and relate. Finally, with all of this, the most important thing to take away seems to be this: don't let beauty rule over you. Beauty alone can never truly fulfill you. Filling your life with more and more beautiful things isn't what life is all about. We can be grateful for being able to appreciate beauty. It's nice to enjoy the beauty we may come across, but the beautiful things on this world are temporary. At the end of the day, it makes sense to not find purpose and meaning in those things. but to focus our lives on finding and living for what lasts beyond this life for eternity, someone more beautiful than we could ever imagine. With that, the illustration of Yumari is done. I hope the thoughts I shared on the topic of beauty helped you in some way. I'd love to hear your own point of view on how beauty shapes your life in the comments. You can also let me know what part of this video you like the most or other feedback you have. Links to Youlight's social media will be in the video description. Feel free to check it out. In this friendship book inspired template, I kept track of all the elements from the analysis portion of this video. If you're interested in the full resolution version of this, I'll have it on my Patreon, along with the screen recorded process video of drawing the basic head and body for this video. Other than this, if you'd like to support me, it would mean a lot if you'd like the video and subscribe for more videos like this one in the future. Thank you for watching, have a nice day, bye!